Alright, so hold on a second. Alright, so this is continuing to record, so I'm going to assume that the video is still going. So this is now video number 3. Sorry about the interruption. So, this is video 3 of the CIA Hyper Game Theory video series that I started today. So let's just say for a minute that you, if this video stops before I say thank you for listening, have a good day, if it stops abruptly, still stay with the video series and the account you're seeing it through. Okay, because I'm still getting used to how this phone allows me to make it appears to only be it appears to only allow me to make 33-minute videos at a time. Okay, so that which is why it's a series, more than one video. Okay, so anyway, so you have a couple that was corralled into their living room and is being completely shown that they're totally powerless over these 5 intruders. Therefore, that couple has only got the option to survive in the way that the 5 perpetrators are letting them know. If you sit in your chair and don't move, if you don't give us any grief, we're just going to rob you and leave and you'll be fine. Okay? So that's 2 human beings that are being trapped in a room, and they're only being given 2 options. Cooperate, and behave. Okay? Now, those are the only 2 options those human beings have to survive in that situation, because that situation is being enforced and affected upon them in a way to where there's no other options available. That's what CIA Hyper Game Theory is, when the victims are put in the gang stalking program, where the victim is put in the program and then only allowed a certain amount of resources to survive each day. And those resources will eventually be chipped away from completely. So then you end up in their control for exploitation, for further exploitation. So, now, in the second video, I brought up, now just hear me out, I brought up CIA Hyper Game Theory, and I also brought up, I was leading into an analogy about some possible ways that you can change CIA Hyper Game Theory in case you're in it, if you're a victim of gang stalking. So here's just one fast analogy, and plus me, there's a lot more details coming, and there are other ways as well that I'm going to expose that I believe can cause a huge impact, not only onto the game itself, but it can also very realistically and even somewhat probably cause massive problems for the people who are being controlled by these satanic rats from behind the scenes, like the governors, okay, the state attorney general's office, your county DA, state, county, and local cops, and so on. Because check this out. So hear this analogy real fast. And again, if this video abruptly stops, don't think that this wasn't a good video series, quality video series that was made. Remember, I'm still getting used to how this phone is operating. And so just stay tuned. If I see this video stop before I say thank you for listening, have a good day, then there'll be a video 3 of this video series, and then there'll be a video 3A. And that will be a continuation of video 3. So just stay with the account, the YouTube account you see this video through. So anyways, so check this out. Yeah, so I'm going to bring up a couple of analogies real fast, so that once I continue to talk, you're going to be able to see why these analogies and metaphors are used, so you can see what possibly you can force an effect upon them that then should open up some more options and opportunities for you to then wiggle your way into, so you can not only last, so you can not only survive, but that might also help you chip away at some of the circumstances that these filthy, criminally insane, genocidal, mass murdering, human trafficking, raping, gang raping animals have put you in, because that's all they are. It's not all they are, because they're much more than that, including much worse than that. But what I mean is that when I say that's all they are nothing but extreme criminals. It's all they are, is extreme criminals. There is not one of these satanic rats who are hosting this crime. There is not one of these satanic rats who are in control of the weaponry that is perpetrated upon the gang stalking victims' neurological and biological systems. Every single last one of these wild animals are nothing but wild, criminally insane animals. They will never change themselves. They will never stop this program against you by their own, through their own actions. They're criminally insane. And there has never been one genocidal maniac throughout the entire history of the human race that has stopped their own behaviors. So you better be damn sure these wild animals ain't going to. They don't have the capacity to. They're literally cognitively dissident from normal, healthy cognitive functions. They're not only extreme sociopaths, but they're also extreme psychopaths. And an extreme sociopath and psychopath cannot correct their own behavior. Not when it gets to the criminal level that these psychotic rats are at. Okay? So just trust me on that. So anyways, alright, so check this out. Now, that is literally how extreme this program is. Alright, these people literally make Jeffrey Dahmer look like a choir boy. That is no exaggeration at all. So check this out. Now, so when you watch video 1 and 2, you're going to see enough details are given to you to help you kind of see what part of the CIA hyper gang theory is applied in gang stalking crimes against gang stalking victims. But check this out. Any game, a software game, can be reprogrammed so that other options can be put in it. Okay, when you buy a Monopoly board game at a store and bring it home, even though it's got its own set of rules concerning how to play it, you can also make up your own and incorporate that within the already applied rules, so you can widen the scope of the game. All right, now hold on a second. I got something in my ear. Bear with me a second. Okay, now, when you watch video 1 and 2 in this one, and you continue to stay with this video series, and when you research my descriptions, you're going to see how all this works together. And trust me, I literally guarantee you, you will be glad you stayed with this video series. So anyways, now, so I'm going to give you some statements right now, and trust me, that they are relevant and they matter. And you'll see how they matter as I continue to talk. I got a fly in here that's bothering me right now, so bear with me. Now, in the movie Troy, with Brad Pitt, you're gonna see. I talked about him in video 2. You're gonna see how Troy, who played the role of Achilles, you're gonna see how he was a mighty, very skillful, extremely wide worldly known warrior at that time in history. I mean, he was known worldwide as being the best warrior in real time that ever existed and that existed in that time period. So he was extremely respected and completely, thoroughly feared. And so watch the movie Troy with Brad Pitt, and I think you'll get a general understanding. But what's relevant about the movie Troy and the story Troy pertaining to this issue, pertaining to this video series, is two things: Achilles' heel and the Trojan horse scenario. So let's talk about Achilles' heel real fast. So if you were to watch the movie Troy and you see where Brad Pitt, who played Achilles, ended up getting shot in the ankle area with a bow, and it immediately disabled him. The best warrior that had ever existed up to that time got disabled by one bow and arrow because of where it hit him at. Okay, and it stopped him in his tracks. He could no longer fight. Hold on a second. He literally could no longer fight. Not in the effective way that he was fighting before. I mean, he could still stand on one foot and try to get somebody with a sword, but 99% of his fighting capabilities were instantly taken from him when he got shot in the Achilles heel, in the heel part of the bottom part by the ankle and foot where he got shot at. Now, take that information and set it aside, and let's go into the Trojan horse aspect of the movie Troy. Well, the movie Troy, what they did concerning its true history and concerning the movie, the story of Troy and then the movie itself, shows that these invading armies had an extremely hard time getting into the city of Troy because they had extremely well fortified, very high walls, and they couldn't get over them. Okay? So what they did was they tried to make it appear that they had given up and left, but before it, they built this big gigantic horse, okay, through wood, and then kind of like attached panels to it, and left it there as so that the government of Troy and the people would consider it as being a parting peace offer or whatever. Okay, so trust me, you'll understand when you watch the movie or read the story of Troy. So what happened is that the fleeing armies, they took off, and they only went a certain measure away from the shore of Troy, and they left this big, gigantic, wooded horse left on the beach. Hold on. And what they did was they put a lot of some of the most worst, sadistic, well-seasoned warriors inside the horse. And so the members of Troy took that Trojan horse, that physical horse that was made and left on the beach with warriors entrapped inside of it, put inside of it. They wheeled it into the walls of the city of Troy. And then what they did was they waited until it got dark out, and then those warriors came out, and they effected enough damage within the internal city of Troy, and then opened up the doors to let the other warriors back in. They waited until night because they needed the ships to come back to shore for the other warriors to come back so they can get into Troy. Once those warriors who were put in the Trojan horse got out of it, and then created the chaos, and then some of them were used to open up the gates to let the other ones in. So that's the Trojan horse, where the government and the community members of Troy, through psychological operations, were duped into believing that the opposing armies had taken off and that this was a peace offering. As a result of them being duped psychologically, they engaged in actions by taking the horse within their city. Therefore, the people entrapped within them breached their walls and were able to infiltrate the city so they can invade the city from within. Now, that's a pretty worldwide known story. Hold on a second. Let me take a couple puffs off this cigarette because I've been talking for an hour without one, so just bear with me about 30 seconds, okay? Now, going back to CIA hypergame theory, when you see me briefly stop talking for a second, that's because I'm taking a puff of my cigarette, so just bear with me, okay? Now, when you go back to the exposures that I've made so far, and then when you also research CIA hypergame theory in the way I've discussed in video 1 and 2, you're definitely going to have a very good mind's eye view of what the CIA hypergame theory is concerning how it's applied within the gang stalking program against gang stalking victims. So it's a game that's got a massively controlled set of parameters that they put the victim in, and they make sure that all those parameters are kept in place for the control of the victim, that then lead to the eventual exploitation of the victim by and through other additional things that are already part of the program that are then continually effective upon the victim's life, that then takes them into the exploitation. So they're basically intentionally incrementally tearing the victim's life down, and intentionally incrementally perpetrating the program against the victim, so that the last remaining resources are taken away from them so the victim can end up in their control. Okay? Now, so what is one of the downfalls of that? How can a victim possibly force an effect upon the game itself? Other methodologies, their own methodologies and strategies, in order to add their own parameters within the game in order to change the makeup of the game and possibly the outcome of it. So listen carefully. Now, in video 1 and 2, and in many of my other exposures, YouTube, Periscope videos, blogs, tweets on Twitter, and so on over the years, I have always openly stated, that the police are directly connected to this crime, controlled by it, directly connected to it, and participate in it, including in some of the most extreme ways, intentionally, purposely. They do. If you're a good cop, this video ain't meant for you. Okay, but you need to know that even good cops can be used against gang stalking victims, because gang stalking is a program, and it's got power over your job description. You either cooperate or you're fired, or you will just be rotated out so that when the victim interfaces with cops, it won't be you. Hold on. So now, what's one of the Achilles heels concerning this program? Well, if you're a victim of this crime and you ran to the with or without evidence, and you ran to the FBI, DHS, state, county, and local police, governors, state attorney generals, DA's offices, and other people who are supposed to be helping crime victims, most who are supposed to be investigating crime, and they don't do anything, you can prove you reported it to them through electronic communications, by and through tape recordings, video files, and much more. So if you walk into a DA's office or a police station on February 1st, 2013, and said, I'm being gang stalked, here's some of my evidence, and here's some verbalizations of my other evidence, I'm willing to show it to you, what can you do to help me? And they tell you to leave. At the end of that conversation, they just tell you to leave and don't do a damn thing. That becomes a matter of history. Especially if you record the conversation and or videotape it. That becomes a matter of history. Now, we're dealing with an agency and individuals connected to the agency who are supposed to be investigating crime. Hold on. There are laws that are, listen to these few descriptions, few of many. There's a thing, the following you can look up on the internet: conspiracy under the color of authority, obstruction of justice, collusion. Okay, gross negligence. Then when you look at all the different crimes that a victim endures daily, massive Class A felonies, massive misdemeanors, these are literal laws that are being broken. Now, when you report any or all things that are happening to you through this crime and they are not investigated, that's at least gross negligence of duty. If there's conspiracy involved that causes them to not investigate intentionally, that's not only gross negligence of duty, but that's conspiracy under the color of authority, which has already got collusion connected to it, okay, and conspiracy connected to it, and many other Class A felonies, including falsified police reports, falsified arrests based on staged probable cause, illegal tracking, the whole gamut. Every crime that you report you're enduring, if that crime continues one time after you reported it, that also becomes part of it, because the mental suffering you endured, property loss, finances loss, physical assaults, even rapes and robberies, and much more. All of those things ended up happening to you because of the first act of either collusion, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, conspiracy under the color of authority, at least gross negligence of duty. So this is literally part of their Achilles heel. You walk into a cop station with indisputable, in-your-face, 1,000% provable evidence that you are a crime victim, video evidence, audio surveillance, and they refuse to look at that as uncorruptly as true, pure, thorough evidence, and then they say it's not, that's a crime. If they refuse to help you or investigate what's happening to you uncorruptly, that's a crime. Now, what would motivate a police department and law enforcement officer not to investigate anything you're reporting, not to look at the indisputable evidence? The only thing that would guide them to make those choices is conspiracy under the color of authority, which is massive Class A felonies. If you can prove staged probable cause during any event, that's a Class A felony. When you look at all the misdemeanors and Class A felonies that a victim endures on a daily basis, that is breaking the law concerning each one. If I go out and about in the community, listen to this. I literally got 8,700 audio files, literally, of people being propped up around me to repeat gang stalk. Oh my God, just hear me out. You'll understand in a minute. If I go out and about in the community, in my tape recorder, 8,700 audio files have picked up people being propped up around me for 11 straight years in San Diego since August 8, 2011. Every single place I went, literally at 95% of all wooded areas that I was forced to utilize as a result of this crime intentionally making me homeless, from 4 apartments in Michigan and 1 in Tennessee. I got 8,700 audio files that indisputably prove people being propped up every single place I went, so that those places and people within them and that visit them, like customers at grocery stores, library patrons, students at university campuses, staff on university campus, literally showing on these audio files people being propped up directly around me repeating gang stalk, oh my God, suck my dick. And please excuse my language, but you need to hear what they're saying. And I'll explain to you why it's done here in a few minutes, and within upcoming videos related to this video series. So that's related to the sensitization technique of gang stalking, repeating words and phrases and repeating identical words and phrases. The only way that can occur around you through different people each day, everywhere you go, is by and through at least illegal criminal tracking, criminal surveillance as well, criminal stalking. And it can absolutely include criminal use of remote neural monitoring, criminal GPS tracking of your phone, okay, and much more. It can even include non-consensual, listen to this, Google all my statements. It can also include non-consensual neural and biological implantation. There's books written about this. This has even been covered on national radio shows concerning this crime. So just Google the hell out of it. So there's extreme massive ways that these satanic rats can track you in order to know where you're at in real time, every second of the day, so they can prop up staged events, harassment, staged assaults, robberies, rapes, staged probable cause, so you can be set up for false imprisonment, and much more. These are all massive misdemeanors, all Class A felonies on a daily basis. You report any or all of it to the police, and they ignore you completely, even when you're showing them evidence, and even willing to make an appointment with them to show you the other massive indisputable evidence, and they refuse all your rights. That is conspiracy. It's conspiracy under the color of authority. That's collusion, aiding and abetting, obstruction of justice, gross negligence of duty, and much more. Okay? So, as a result of me enduring this, tort law is being also broken. When anybody is intentionally attempting to inflict emotional duress upon you, that through harassment or any staged event or staged prop that makes you feel emotionally distressed, emotionally abused, stalked, harassed, if it makes you feel threatened, which stalking and harassment can, absolutely, okay, that is tort law. So you should research tort law concerning emotional abuse, okay, and anything that intentionally inflicts upon the victim emotional duress. That right there is a law. Now, these laws are on the book. You can go into any law library. You can Google the hell out of this. Conspiracy under the color of authority, collusion, aiding and abetting, obstruction of justice, everything I've already stated. These are laws, literal laws that are on the book. So then when every victim endures each one of those crimes where those laws are broken, then the victim has the constitutionally guaranteed right to report it and then to expect the police to make a police report and then investigate it uncorruptly. Thoroughly uncorruptly. But yet they don't. So that's their Achilles heel. So if you can prove that you approached them with evidence, whether they were shown it or not, and they denied your right to make a police report, to investigate any and all things you state, to refuse to look at your evidence, and even if they do look at your evidence, they'll claim it's not, even though, like, if you walk into a police station, or if you're physically talking to a police officer, as you're videotaping him, and you show him an audio file showing people literally standing 1 foot away from your face, literally yelling, gang stalking, gang of stalking, I'm gonna fuck you up, you then play that audio to them, and they claim they can't understand what's being said, or they say it sounds like Spanish, you can easily see in that video, as they're being shown it, and their reply to it, you can easily see they're corrupt as fuck. So that's their Achilles heel. Because if I was to sue these wild whores in court and lost because of controlled judges, I could then appeal it. If I lose the appeal, I can then take it to the Supreme Court. If I lose it there, does that show then, more than likely, outwardly, transparently, at least through deduction, that the courts are completely controlled? So this is their Achilles heel, because they gotta fucking work like a dog to make sure every single act the victim does when they're trying to showcase their evidence, when they're trying to report it, if it's being stopped, that is a crime in of itself. If you go to the police on multiple occasions and each time they refuse to listen to your evidence, watch your evidence, if they continue to not make no police report about it, if they even then threaten you, including with a psychiatrist, that's breaking the law each time. So therefore, every time they did that, that's breaking the fucking law. So when you can say to yourself, I'm going to prove these people are connected to this crime by and through just that methodology alone, you intentionally proven the police are denying your constitutionally guaranteed rights for assistance, and showing that what you're showing them is indisputable, they have no legitimate or lawful way to excuse their behavior. At all. And this is part of their Achilles heel. They're massively powerful. They're massively influenceable. They can influence any place and anybody the victim comes in contact with. Make no mistake about it. Thoroughly. So that means they're massive, they're big, they're skilled, they got a tradecraft, and they got many resources and tools in their toolbox. Just like Troy, just like Achilles. Achilles was a very skillful warrior who, every time he applied every single separate skill within his fighting, you can consider his whole entire way of fighting as being his toolbox. Each little skill in that toolbox, when it's appropriately affected within the battle, it produces an ending result motive. Okay? And he was massively skillful, yet he got taken down by one arrow from one bow from a distance. Okay? When you look at CIA hyper game theory, it's a program that the victim is intentionally put in, intentionally entrapped in, including for years at a time, so that things can be incrementally done against the victim to set the victim up for eventual exploitation. If you try and beg the police on over 24 different occasions, different dates, different police officers to help you, including while showcasing and proving that you're trying to show them indisputable evidence, then there's got to be a reason for that. That is their Achilles heel. Because law enforcement at the state, county, and federal level are supposed to investigate any crime that is happening to you. Period. End of story. So, if you, as a target, if you be patient, and you do your damnedest to be creative as hell in acquiring evidence, because this is a crime that forces you to notice it. It's a crime that intentionally forces things upon you within the program in order to brain and train you, auditory and visual brain entrainment, which is connected to remote neural monitoring and gang stalking. So they got to, in order for them to brain and train you through visually and auditorily, they got to prop up props that are necessary for you to process so the entrainment can take place. If you video record these props, if you audio record the verbal props, the sound props, the verbal harassment, that's evidence. And then if you're patient and you accumulate a lot of this massive evidence, including the corruption of the cops, then what that is that's you being a patient Trojan horse and invading their lives in order to prove how this crime is protected and allowed. If you're not allowed legal redress through the courts, through the judicial process, if you're not allowed legal redress through the DA's office, the state attorney general's office, the governor, state, county, and local cops, federal law enforcement, if you're not allowed legal redress from victimization, and instead they're used against you, the only thing I think that you can do, what I do, is I legally entrap them. Intentionally effecting perjury traps. Okay? When a law enforcement officer openly confesses on video that they tracked you to Rose Canyon to set you up for a ticket in retaliation because you sent the police chief Zimmerman, SDPD, evidence the day before about you being gang stalked, and then they tracked you to Rose Canyon to retaliate against you, and then he openly confesses it on video, and then you're not allowed to show that video in court. And then when he gets on court, when you ask for a trial and he gets on a stand and lies, that's intentionally affecting perjury, because he has no other way to defend himself except to lie. Now, if you send that video evidence to the prosecutor's office and they still prosecute that ticket, that's absolute criminality through the prosecutor's office, because they are then aware that you were illegally, criminally tracked. That breaks the fucking law. Therefore, they are not legally, lawfully able to prosecute you for that ticket, because it was done through entrapment. And the only way that they can defend themselves in court when you request trial is to get them up on the fucking stand. Okay, as a result of you requesting trial, that forces them on the stand. The only way they can defend themselves to hide the criminality is to lie. Therefore, you're intentionally affecting perjury. So what's more important? You getting a fucking ticket for illegal lodging, or you setting them up to intentionally set them up to retaliate against you? And then if you magically get any type of evidence to prove that that was a setup, they got to defend that setup. You request a trial, you know they're going to lie to defend themselves, they got to. Then you catch them in intentionally entrapped perjury. Then when you catch them on video or audio confessing that they lied on court, then that's confession about the perjury. Okay, you know, this crime, it can say to itself on a daily fucking basis when these wild, satanic, mass-murdering, filthy animals get up and say today, we're going to sit back in conference so we know what we can do against Julie. We're going to set Julie up today for a gang rape. And we can do this by either neurally influencing her to go somewhere through voice-to-skull and voice morphing, or we can set her up by creating the circumstances that cause her to go to a place where she can then be duped and taken somewhere else and gang raped, where it's then videotaped and sold to the dark web hundreds of times, where they make hundreds of thousands of dollars off it. where they will then use ELF broadcasting and or voice the skull to mock her about it continually for years so they can auditorily brain train her to those phonetic, okay, words and phrases she's hearing. See, when you got wild, filthy animals who think that you can just fucking wake up in the morning and say, we don't give a flying fuck what we're going to do to anybody, because we're going to do it because we know we're protected. Any wild, demonic, criminally insane animal who has no hesitation in torturing an infant with electromagnetic weapons. Literally. A wild animal like that, do you think a wild animal is going to have two thoughts about fucking setting a woman or a man up for a gang rape? Okay? So when you got fucking mentalities like this who then say to themselves, we got the ability to do this because we know we're thoroughly, purely, 1000% protected. And the victim is thoroughly made sure, or the victim is kept in the circumstance where they can never get legal redress about one crime, let alone the tens of thousands of crimes they endure over an 11-year period. When you got a wild animal who's got the ability to fucking make that kind of armchair decision and then affect it into action, those are the kinds of satanic bitches that you set up. I don't give a flying fuck if it's the DOD, the DIA, the CIA, or the NSA, who are widely reported in the two hypotheses with Brian 2, who I exposed in the second video. I literally don't give a flying fuck who you are. I literally do not care thoroughly, purely. I fucking don't care who you are at all. I will set you up, I will entrap you every motherfucking way I can, legally, until these wild whores get on that fucking stand and confess who used the San Diego police for one event in 2006 that was intentionally perpetrated in order to create causes and effects and circumstances that led me to be human trafficked for years back in Michigan. It was an intentional, staged event brought about and applied through gang stalking techniques right to my fucking face. One event can cause years of suffering when you have a gang stalking victim who's a gang stalking victim who don't know they're a gang stalking victim. One event through a lying organized crime police officer can cause you to be human trafficked for years. So if they got that mentality that we'll fucking just get up and do anything and everything we want to, Miss Williams or any other fucking target, then you do what you gotta do to set these criminal bastards up. Because they don't give a fuck. They don't give a shit about anything they do to anybody. They do not care at all. They're wild animals. So, being a Trojan horse can have a double meaning. When I used it in an email that I made out here in 2006 at the San Diego Point Loma Library, as I was using their library computers to contact a prosecutor in Wayne, Michigan, Kim Worthy, about some of the things that I had already endured in Michigan apartments through this crime. I didn't discover gang stalking until June 9, 2009, yet many things that I described in those emails are gang stalking techniques that are found all over the internet, and my blog indisputably proves that I did not know about gang stalking until June.